Chapter 1. The Encounter. It had been another uneventful day in the vast reaches of space. My name is Jacob Holt, a low-ranking member of the Galactic Exploration Program, and this particular assignment had seemed like it would be nothing more than just another entry in the logbook of endless surveys. The assignment was a standard 1A quick scan of a distant star system, followed by a scan of a planet known as 05, an unremarkable little rock on the outskirts of known space. The kind of planet that most colonization programs had passed over and quickly forgotten. A barren desert planet, with nothing that stood out from any other in its proximity. It was listed as uninhabitable, but in the universe of endless stars, who could be sure of such things? We were always sent to places that others had dismissed, sent to search for the unknown. That's how I ended up here, stranded on the dust-covered surface of a planet no one seemed to care about. When I first landed on 05, I noticed the oddity almost immediately. There was an energy signature, faint but persistent, emanating from deep beneath the planet's surface. This wasn't the kind of signal you'd expect to find on a planet like 05. The scans indicated that something massive, something highly advanced, was buried under miles of sand and rock. I wasn't supposed to go digging up ancient relics or discover lost civilizations. My assignment was to gather environmental data, check the seismic activity, and report back with results that could help improve future colonization efforts. Nothing flashy, nothing dangerous, nothing that would ever make my name known across the stars. Or so I thought. The problem was, the longer I spent on 05, the more I realized something didn't quite add up. The energy signature wasn't just a blip on the radar, it was rhythmic, almost alive, pulsing in patterns I couldn't quite decipher. It felt as though the planet itself was holding its breath, waiting for something. After the first day, I couldn't shake the feeling that something or someone was out there, watching, waiting for me to discover it. On the second day of my survey, I decided to investigate the source of the signal further. Armed with a few scanning tools and a portable digger, I made my way towards the coordinates that had been marked by the ship's systems. The sun was beginning to set as I trekked across the cracked, barren desert landscape, the ground dry and parched underfoot. The air was hot, dry, and suffocating, and the wind swept fine, gritty sand across my path, making it difficult to keep a clear view. Yet, despite the oppressive heat, I pressed on, the curiosity gnawing at me, driving me forward. Whatever it was down there, I needed to know. It had to be something that the sensors weren't picking up, something that had been buried for a reason. As I reached the location where the signal seemed strongest, I stumbled upon something far stranger than I had expected. Beneath the surface of the planet, hidden just beneath the sandy terrain, there was a large structure, an entrance to something ancient and almost certainly alien. I approached cautiously, marveling at the sheer scale of the thing. It wasn't a natural formation. This was constructed. A door of sorts, circular in design, made from a material that seemed too smooth to be natural. There were no markings, no obvious symbols, just a clean, sleek surface, almost glowing with an eerie, faint light. I reached out, half expecting something terrible to happen, but the door didn't open with any great fanfare. It slid open as though responding to my presence, and a soft hiss of air rushed out from the inside, filling the air with a deep, mechanical groan. Inside, the darkness was all-encompassing, but there was a slight flicker of something at the far end, a glowing blue light that seemed to beckon me forward. Against my better judgment, I entered the doorway, and as I did, I felt the air change. It was cooler in here, more breathable. But that sense of waiting, of something ancient that had been sleeping, still hung heavy in the air. I moved through the corridor, the ground beneath me smooth and metallic, as though I were walking through the belly of some enormous machine. The walls were perfectly aligned, nothing out of place. My boots clicked against the surface, and my breath seemed too loud in the otherwise oppressive silence. The air inside felt almost charged with energy. It was difficult to pinpoint, but I could sense that I was not alone. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. Someone was here, and I was only just beginning to realize that I might not be the first to uncover this place. The flickering blue light grew brighter as I rounded a corner, and it was then that I saw them. Two figures, standing side by side, barely visible in the dim glow of the chamber. At first, I thought they were statues, frozen in place by some long-forgotten force. But then they moved slowly, cautiously turning to face me. At that moment, everything seemed to stop. The air felt thick, as though time itself had frozen. The figures in front of me were unmistakably alien, humanoid in shape, but unlike anything I had ever seen. Their skin was a pale, almost translucent shade of blue, with subtle veins running across their faces, visible through the almost ethereal skin. They were both tall, towering over me by at least a foot, their eyes large and dark, almost black in the dim light. There was something unsettling in their gaze, something ancient, something powerful. I took a step back, but they didn't approach. Instead, they merely watched me, their eyes following my every move, and I felt their presence like a weight pressing down on me. The silence stretched out, unbearable, until one of them stepped forward, her movements fluid and graceful, as though the air around her bent to her will. She spoke, her voice melodic, but harsh at the same time, an unfamiliar language that carried an otherworldly quality. There was no mistaking it. She was trying to communicate, and yet, I understood none of it. I fumbled for my translator device, but before I could activate it, the second figure, a male, I presumed, extended his hand toward me. His movements were slow and deliberate, but the gesture was unmistakable. He wasn't attacking. He was trying to connect, to communicate. The tension in the air was palpable, and as I stood there, confused and unsure of what to do, the female figure took a step forward again. This time, she extended her hand in a similar fashion. I reached out hesitantly, my fingers brushing against her skin. At first, I didn't feel anything, but then, a jolt of energy passed between us. It wasn't painful, but it was intense, like an electric current flowing through my body. My heart skipped a beat as the world seemed to shift around me. The sensation was unlike anything I had ever felt. And then, just as quickly as it had come, it was gone. The alien twin, the female, smiled faintly, though the expression was hard to read, the alien features on her face too subtle to fully understand. "You speak," she said, but the words were clearer this time, much clearer than before. The translator kicked in, and I understood her. What do you mean?" I stammered. "How can I speak? I don't know your language." Her eyes glowed for a moment, a strange light that filled the chamber with an ethereal radiance. "You understand now," she said. "You are the one who can bridge the gap, who can awaken the lost tongues. We need you." "Need me?" I was confused, my mind racing as I tried to comprehend what was happening. These beings, these alien twins, what were they trying to tell me? Why had they appeared now, in front of me, in this forgotten place? What was it that they wanted from me? Suddenly, the second twin, the male, stepped forward, his hands moving with swift precision as he pressed a series of buttons on a control panel hidden in the wall. The room shifted, and the ground beneath my feet trembled as a low hum filled the air. A wall to my right slid open, revealing an enormous chamber filled with intricate machines, glowing in a strange light. It was as though everything I had stumbled upon had been waiting for someone to unlock its potential. "You are the one," the female twin repeated, her voice filled with a strange certainty, almost as if she had been waiting for me, specifically. "You speak our language, and now, you will help us fix what was broken." I stared at them, still in disbelief. But I could no longer deny it. Whatever had brought me here, whatever strange twist of fate had led me to 05, was no accident. The alien twins, these strange, powerful beings, had been waiting for me to come, for me to understand their language, their culture. And now, the responsibility lay on my shoulders. But what had they meant by fixing what was broken? And why was I, a mere human, the one they needed? The question swirled in my mind, and I realized, as I looked into the glowing eyes of the alien twins, that my life had just changed forever. The air around me seemed to thrum with an unseen energy as I stood there, staring at the alien twins who had somehow unlocked the ability for me to communicate in their language, a language I should not have been able to understand, let alone speak. The intense gaze of the female twin, the one who had initiated the connection, was still fixed on me. Her eyes, wide and black like the void of space, glowed with an eerie light, giving her an almost ethereal quality. There was something ancient about her presence, as though she carried within her the weight of centuries, perhaps even millennia. Her twin, though silent, was equally imposing. His eyes were not as expressive as hers, but his stillness spoke volumes. He wasn't just observing me, he was waiting, as if he had already anticipated this moment. Despite the extraordinary nature of this encounter, there was an unsettling stillness in the air. My heart was still racing, but I had to push through the shock. This wasn't the time to question how I got here, how they had somehow woken the dormant power within me to speak their language. No, I had to figure out what they wanted from me and what kind of role I was meant to play in whatever came next. I still don't understand, I said, my voice trembling slightly. The words came out more hoarsely than I intended, but I had to press on. Why me? Why am I here? I'm just a surveyor, an explorer. I have no business dash. You do. The female twin interrupted, her voice resonating in my mind more than in my ears. The translator device seemed to have faded into the background, and the language itself now felt natural to me. You are not just an explorer. You are part of something greater. We have watched your kind for a long time, Jacob Holt. The sound of my name from her lips caught me off guard. How do you know my name? I asked, eyes narrowing slightly. We know much about you, human. The male twin finally spoke, his voice deep, like a low hum vibrating in the air around us. More than you can comprehend. You are the one who has the key. The language is the key. The Zelrians left it, but it was buried, waiting. And now, you've unlocked it. And with it, you've unlocked us. My mind was reeling. The Zelrians, those ancient beings who had long vanished from galactic history. They were legends. But now, I was being told that somehow, I had become connected to them through their language. The idea that I, a simple human, was in any way significant to their legacy was as absurd as it was terrifying. You want me to fix something, I said, trying to gather my thoughts. But what is broken? And how exactly am I supposed to help you? The female twin stepped closer, her presence undeniable. Her eyes seemed to soften for a fraction of a second before she spoke again, her voice almost like a soft echo in my mind. The relics that were left behind, the structures you see around you, they are not mere artifacts. They are anchors. The Zelrians tied their power to these things, to this world. But over time, the balance was disrupted. We cannot fix what is broken without the right one. The one who can speak the language, who can wield the power of the relics. Fix balance. I repeated. Are you saying the Zelrians are still here? That they never left? Her eyes flickered with something that could have been sadness, or perhaps regret. The Zelrians are gone. Their bodies perished eons ago. But their energy, their legacy, it remains, buried deep within these ruins, within these relics. The balance must be restored, or else the Ascendants will consume everything. They already know of the power here. They are coming. I felt a chill creep up my spine as the weight of her words sunk in. The Ascendants. The very mention of them conjured up images of ruthless conquerors, an empire that had been spreading through the galaxy like wildfire, consuming everything in their path. And now, they were coming for this place, for this power, for the relics that the Zelrians had left behind. And somehow, I had found myself in the middle of it all. What am I supposed to do? I asked, my voice strained. How can I possibly stop them? The male twin took a step forward, his movements slow and deliberate. The power lies within the language. The relics are not just objects, they are living, breathing energies. They respond to the one who speaks their language. You have the ability to wield that power. You must restore the balance before the Ascendants take it for themselves. I felt the weight of their words press down on me. I wasn't ready for this. I didn't know how to fight an empire, let alone control ancient alien technology. And yet, here I was, being told I was the only one who could stop the Ascendants from taking control of the galaxy's most powerful secrets. But I couldn't turn away now. I had uncovered something I didn't understand, something that was bigger than anything I had ever imagined. You said the relics are alive? I said, trying to regain some semblance of control. How do I use them? The female twin gestured to the chamber around us, her hand sweeping toward the vast, intricate machinery that stretched into the shadows. You will learn, she said simply. But first, you must come with us. We cannot restore the balance on our own. You are the key, Jacob Holt. You must come to the heart of the relics, to where it all began. Only then can you unlock what is needed. With no other option but to follow, I nodded. The twins moved with an unnatural grace, gliding through the shadows of the ancient temple as if they were part of it. I followed, my every step unsure but driven by the need to understand, to find out what I was supposed to do. What had I just become a part of? Chapter 2. The Heart of the Relics. The journey through the ancient ruins of the temple was disorienting. The walls seemed to shift around us, the patterns in the stone shifting like liquid under my feet, as though they were alive, watching me. The soft hum of energy that filled the air seemed to grow louder the deeper we went, a constant, unyielding presence that filled every corner of the cavernous structure. The alien twins moved with purpose, their eyes never leaving the path ahead, guiding me through the winding corridors and vast chambers, each one more breathtaking and awe-inspiring than the last. The sheer scale of the place was mind-boggling. These ruins were ancient, older than anything I had ever seen, and yet they were perfectly preserved untouched by the ravages of time. It felt as though this place had been waiting for me, for someone like me, to arrive. We finally came to a large, open chamber, and as we entered, the overwhelming presence of the relics hit me like a wave. The walls were covered in strange symbols, glowing faintly with an otherworldly light. At the center of the chamber stood an enormous structure, towering over us like a monument to a forgotten civilization. It was a machine of sorts, its shape both organic and mechanical, twisting and curving in ways that defied understanding. "This is the heart of it," the female twin said softly, her voice almost reverent. "The core of the Zelrian's power. It is from here that everything was created." I stepped closer, my eyes widening as I saw the intricate network of glowing lines and patterns that covered the structure. It was as if the entire machine was alive, its energy flowing through it in pulses, each beat of the light synchronized with the rhythm of the chamber. The air was thick with power. I could feel it, a pulsing energy that resonated deep within me, like a second heartbeat. It was both terrifying and exhilarating. "What is it?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "How does it work?" The male twin stepped forward, his gaze fixed on the structure. "The Zelrians used this to harness the energies of the universe itself," he explained, his tone almost wistful. "They unlocked the very fabric of reality and bent it to their will. This is not just a relic, it is a key to everything. And now, it is yours to command." I didn't know what to say. The power here, the sheer scale of it, was beyond anything I had ever imagined. I had no training in this kind of technology, no understanding of how it worked. But standing here, in the heart of the relics, I could feel it calling to me, urging me to unlock its secrets. It was as if the machine itself knew I was the one who could wield it. The female twin turned to me, her expression unreadable. "It is time, Jacob Holt. You must speak the words. Use the language." I looked at her, uncertainty swirling within me. I had spoken the language before, but it had always felt like something I was learning, something I was still grasping at. Could I really use it now, to control something this powerful? Could I stop the ascendants with nothing more than the knowledge of a long-dead civilization? The twins watched me closely, their eyes filled with quiet expectation. There was no turning back now. I was the key, and I had to unlock the power that lay within me. Taking a deep breath, I stepped forward, my heart pounding in my chest. The language, this ancient, alien tongue, flowed from me as if it had always been a part of me. As the words left my mouth, the structure responded, the glowing lines shifting and pulsing in time with my voice. The energy within the chamber surged, and I felt the power of the relics vibrating through my body, resonating in my very soul. The chamber filled with a blinding light, and for a moment, I felt like I was floating, untethered from reality itself. Then, the light faded, and I was left standing before the relics, my heart still racing, the power of the language now fully alive within me. "You have done it," the female twin said, her voice full of quiet reverence. "You are ready." I looked at the structure in front of me, feeling the weight of what I had just unlocked. The balance had been restored, and the galaxy's fate now rested in my hands. But I knew this was only the beginning. The air in the chamber was thick with energy, and every breath I took seemed to draw that power into my very being. I stood there, almost overwhelmed by the presence of the relics, the pulse of energy that seemed to vibrate through the floor and into my bones. There was something both invigorating and terrifying about the power that surrounded me. It was raw, untamed, yet strangely comforting, as if the universe itself were acknowledging my presence, recognizing that I, Jacob Holt, was now a part of something far bigger than I could have ever imagined. I turned to the twins, who stood silently by, their gaze unwavering. They were waiting for something from me, waiting for me to understand the magnitude of what had just happened. The words I had spoken, the language of the Zelrians, had unlocked the relic's power, but the question still lingered in my mind. What was I supposed to do with it? How was I to wield something so immense, something so ancient, to stop an empire like the Ascendants? I was no soldier, no tactician. I was just a simple explorer, someone who had stumbled into something far beyond my comprehension. "You've unlocked it," the female twin said softly, breaking the silence. The power is yours, Jacob Holt. You are the one the Zelrians chose to carry their legacy. But now you must learn how to control it, how to use it. Her words hung in the air like a challenge, and I realized the full weight of what she was saying. It wasn't enough to simply understand the language, it wasn't enough to have unlocked the power of the Zelrians. I had to learn how to use it, to control it. I had to figure out how to make this ancient, vast power work for me, how to bend it to my will. The thought was both exhilarating and terrifying, but I had no choice. The Ascendants were coming, and I was the only one who could stop them. I looked around the chamber, the glowing lines and symbols on the walls still pulsing with energy. It was as if the very fabric of the universe was woven into the relics themselves. There were no instructions, no manuals, no clear path. The Zelrians had left their legacy behind, and now it was up to me to decipher it. How do I control it? I asked, my voice almost a whisper. The chamber seemed to echo with the weight of my question, the air thick with anticipation. You will learn, the male twin replied, his voice deep and measured. The relics are not just tools, they are a part of you now. The language is alive. It responds to your intentions, your desires. But you must understand it first. You must feel it in your soul, not just in your mind. The female twin stepped closer, her expression softening for the first time since our encounter. The language is not just a means of communication, Jacob Holt. It is the very fabric of reality. It is a bridge between worlds, between the living and the dead, between time and space. To control it, you must first understand its essence. You must become the language. Her words were like a riddle, one I couldn't quite piece together. Become the language? I repeated, still trying to make sense of what she meant. How can I become it? You will understand in time, the female twin said with a mysterious smile. But first, you must connect with the relics on a deeper level. You must bond with them. Only then will you be able to control the power they hold. As I absorbed her words, I felt the weight of the task ahead of me settle over me. This wasn't going to be easy. I wasn't just learning a new language, I was being asked to become one with it, to become a conduit for the power of the Zelrians. I had to learn how to wield this power, how to use it to unite the galaxy, to stop the Ascendants before they destroyed everything. How do I start? I asked, feeling a sense of urgency rising within me. Every passing moment was one where the Ascendants were growing closer, their forces gathering. Time was running out. The male twin stepped forward, his gaze fixed on me. You must meditate on the language, he said. Let it flow through you. Let it become a part of your thoughts, your actions. You will need to harness the power of the relics in ways you cannot yet comprehend. But you will learn. I nodded slowly, the enormity of the task weighing heavily on my shoulders. I had unlocked something vast, something unimaginable, and now it was up to me to figure out how to use it. But I wasn't alone. The twins were with me, guiding me, teaching me. They had been waiting for someone like me, someone who could understand the Zelrian language, someone who could unlock the relic's power. The next few days were a blur of intense training and meditation. I spent hours in the heart of the relic chamber, focusing on the language, trying to feel its essence deep within me. The twins were patient with me, guiding me through the rituals and practices that would allow me to unlock the full power of the Zelrians. It wasn't easy. The language was complex, layered with meaning and intention. Every word had weight, every syllable carried power. But with each passing day, I felt myself becoming more attuned to it, more connected to the relics and their ancient energy. I began to understand what the twins had meant. The language wasn't just a means of communication, it was a force, a living entity that responded to the speaker's will. It was a bridge between the known and the unknown, a force that could reshape reality itself. I could feel it pulsing through me, like a second heartbeat, a part of my very being. And as I grew stronger, I felt the presence of the Zelrians with me, guiding me, helping me understand their legacy. But even as I trained, even as I learned to control the power of the language, the threat of the Ascendants loomed over me. I knew they were coming, and I knew that the time to act was drawing near. I couldn't afford to waste time. I had to master this power, and I had to do it quickly. The fate of the galaxy rested on my shoulders. Chapter 3: The Gathering Storm. The days spent in the heart of the relics felt like an eternity. I had made progress, but I was still far from mastering the full extent of the Zelrian language. The power that flowed through me was vast, and it was becoming increasingly difficult to control. I had unlocked the first steps, learning to harness the energy in small ways, manipulating the environment around me, shaping light and sound with a simple thought. But that was just the beginning. I knew that I had to learn to wield this power in a way that would allow me to stop the Ascendants, to unite the galaxy's forces and stop them from consuming everything in their path. The twins had taught me much, but even they seemed to understand the gravity of the situation. Time was slipping away, and the Ascendants were closing in. The pressure was mounting. Every time I focused on the language, I felt the weight of the galaxy on my shoulders, a crushing responsibility that made it difficult to breathe. The more I learned, the more I realized how little I truly understood. The power of the relics was not just an advantage, it was a force that could change the very fabric of reality itself. If I didn't learn to control it, if I didn't learn how to wield it properly, I could destroy everything. The twins were patient, guiding me through each step, but I could feel their unease. The male twin, always calm and collected, was the first to break the silence one evening as we sat together in the chamber, the soft hum of the relics filling the air. "You must be ready," he said, his voice grave. "The Ascendants are relentless. They will stop at nothing to claim the power of the relics for themselves. And once they do, the galaxy will fall." "I know," I said, my voice tight. "I'm doing everything I can, but I still don't know enough. I'm not ready." "You will be," the female twin said, her voice soft but filled with conviction. "You must trust yourself, Jacob Holt. You are the one who can stop them. You are the one who has unlocked the language. The Zelrians chose you for this." Her words lingered in the air, and for the first time, I began to believe it. The language, the relics, they had chosen me. It was a heavy burden, but it was one I had to carry. The fate of the galaxy rested in my hands. The time had come. The Ascendants were drawing near, and I had to be ready. The days following the conversation with the twins passed in a blur of intense training and preparation. The pressure had begun to weigh on me, pulling at my mind like an invisible force, urging me to hurry, to unlock the secrets of the relics before it was too late. The Ascendants were not just a distant threat anymore, they were coming. Their empire was vast, stretching across galaxies, and they would stop at nothing to consume the power I had just uncovered. But how could I, one human, hope to stand against such a force? I wasn't a soldier, I wasn't a tactician. I was just a man who had stumbled upon something ancient, something powerful. I had no right to bear such a responsibility. Yet the relics had chosen me. The language of the Zelrians had unlocked a power within me, a force that I could barely begin to comprehend. I had felt it surge through me, like an electric current coursing through my veins, and it was clear that I had only just scratched the surface of what was possible. But the stakes were too high. There was no time to hesitate. The twins were relentless in their guidance, pushing me further, teaching me how to manipulate the energy, how to channel it, how to make it part of who I was. At first, it was overwhelming, too much to process. But as the days went by, I began to feel more attuned to the language, to the relics, to the energy that pulsed around me. It became a part of me, as natural as breathing. And yet, with each new lesson, I could feel the power growing within me, pulling at the edges of my consciousness, threatening to overtake me. It was as though the language itself was a living thing, eager to be unleashed, eager to reshape reality. One evening, after a particularly grueling training session, I stood in the center of the chamber, feeling the power surge through me as I practiced manipulating the relic's energy. My hands glowed with the light of the Zelrians, the symbols on the walls reacting to my every movement, shifting and changing in response to the energy I was channeling. The room was alive with the hum of power, and I could feel the relics pushing against my control, testing me. It was exhilarating, but terrifying at the same time. I was on the edge, teetering between mastery and destruction. "You are close," the female twin said, her voice calm but filled with something more pride, perhaps, or anticipation. She stood nearby, watching me carefully, her eyes never leaving my form. "The language is yours, Jacob Holt. But now, you must learn to control it fully, to use it without losing yourself." I nodded, wiping the sweat from my brow. "I understand," I said, though I wasn't sure I truly did. The power I held was immense, and the responsibility was crushing. The weight of the galaxy was on my shoulders, and every decision I made could tip the balance in one direction or the other. How could I possibly live up to the expectations of the Zelrians? How could I face the Ascendants when I still didn't fully understand what I was capable of? The male twin stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "You are ready," he said. The Ascendants are closing in on us. They will come for the relics, for the power you now command. But if you are to stop them, you must unite the galaxy's forces. You cannot fight them alone. You must awaken the ancient allies who have been waiting for you. You are the key to the galaxy's salvation. I looked at them both, feeling the weight of their words. The twins were right. The Ascendants were unstoppable on their own, but together, with the power of the Zelrians at my command, I could unite the fractured forces of the galaxy. I could stand against them. But how do I awaken them? I asked, the uncertainty creeping back into my voice. The ancient allies? Who are they? You will know when the time comes, the female twin replied, her voice soft but filled with conviction. The language will guide you. The relics will reveal the way. You must trust in yourself, Jacob Holt. You are more than just a human. You are a beacon of hope for the galaxy. The weight of their words hung in the air, but something inside me clicked. I wasn't just a scholar anymore. I wasn't just a man who had stumbled upon a forgotten language. I was the one who could change everything. The relics, the language, the power, they were mine to wield. And I would wield them, not just to stop the Ascendants, but to restore balance to the galaxy, to give hope to those who had none. Chapter 4. The Final Stand. The time had come. The Ascendants were no longer a distant threat. They were here, and they were closing in. Their fleet had been detected just beyond the outer rim of the system. Their warships like shadows in the void, massive and imposing. Their weapons ready to tear apart anything that stood in their way. But I wasn't alone. The power of the Zelrians was within me, and I had done what needed to be done. I had united the fractured forces of the galaxy, brought together those who had once been divided by fear, by distrust, by their own inability to see the bigger picture. I had spoken the language of the Zelrians, and with it, I had awakened the ancient allies who had been waiting, just as the female twin had said. The ancient guardians, the forgotten races who had once fought alongside the Zelrians to preserve the balance of the universe, had answered my call. Their ships had arrived, just in time. But even with their forces behind me, I knew the battle would be hard. The Ascendants were ruthless, their strength unparalleled. I was only human, and though the power of the Zelrians surged within me, I knew that it would not be enough to defeat them alone. The allies were with us, but the fight was far from over. I stood on the bridge of our flagship, looking out at the vast expanse of space, the massive Ascendant fleet hanging just beyond the horizon, waiting for the order to strike. My heart raced as I looked at the battle maps, at the positions of our ships, at the strategy we had devised. The Ascendants were ready, but so were we. The voice of the female twin filled my mind, steady and calm. You must lead them, Jacob Holt. The power is yours to command. You must give them hope. I nodded, feeling the weight of her words settle over me like a cloak. The relics, the language, it had all led to this moment. I was ready. I had to be. I turned to the crew, my allies, my friends, those who had placed their trust in me. This is it, I said, my voice steady, though my heart was pounding in my chest. We fight not just for our survival, but for the future of the galaxy. The Ascendants will not win. We will not let them. Today, we restore balance. With those words, I activated the ship's comms, transmitting the message across the fleet. The ancient ships, once dormant, now came to life, their energy blending with mine as we prepared for the final stand. The Ascendant fleet surged forward, their warships charging toward us with unstoppable force. But we were ready. Together, we launched our counterattack, using the power of the Zelrians to manipulate the energy of the battlefield. The language, now a part of me, guided my every move, my every decision. The relics responded to my will, bending the fabric of reality itself to help us. We struck with precision, overwhelming the Ascendants with a force they had never seen before. The battle raged for hours, each moment a blur of light and fire, of destruction and defiance. But in the end, we triumphed. The Ascendant fleet, once invincible, was shattered, their forces scattered, their power broken. And in that moment, the galaxy was saved. As I stood on the bridge of our ship, watching the remnants of the Ascendant fleet retreat into the darkness, I knew that the victory had come at a great cost. But it had been worth it. The galaxy had been preserved. The balance had been restored. And as I looked out at the stars, I realized that this was only the beginning. The Zelrians had chosen me, not just to stop the Ascendants, but to lead the galaxy into a new era. The relics, the language, the power, it was all mine to command. And with it, I would help shape the future of the galaxy.